So, if you've spent any time online, I'm sure you've stumbled across these videos. You know the ones. Someone whispering into a really fancy microphone, or maybe just tapping their nails on a book. It's this huge internet thing called ASMR, and let's be honest, from the outside looking in, it can seem kind of strange. But for millions of people, it's the secret to relaxation. So, let's get into it and figure out what's really going on here. All right, first up, let me ask you something. Have you ever been sitting in a quiet room, maybe listening to someone turn the pages of a book, or even getting your hair cut, and you feel this weirdly pleasant, static-like tingle that starts at the back of your head? It's a feeling a lot of us have had, but it's always been so hard to put into words. Well, believe it or not, that feeling actually has a name. And in this first part, we're going to define exactly what the tingle is. Okay, here's the official term, autonomous sensory meridian response, or ASMR for short. Yeah, it's a bit of a mouthful, I know. But let's just break it down. Autonomous just means it happens all by itself. You can't force it. Sensory is obvious, it has to do with your senses. And meridian response is just a fancy way of saying that peak tingling feeling that can wash down your spine. So the key takeaway here is this. It's a real physical reaction to something you see or hear. And what's so wild is that the feeling itself is ancient. People have been getting these brain tingles from stuff like whiskers or having their hair brushed forever. It's just that nobody had a name for it until 2010, when the online community finally gave it one. And from that moment on, it just exploded into the massive global phenomenon we see today. So what is it about these videos that actually causes this whole sensation? That's a great question, and it brings us right to our next section, the anatomy of a trigger. The people who make this content are called ASM artists, and their number one tool, a crazy high sensitivity microphone. We're talking about microphones that are so powerful, they can pick up the absolute quietest sounds, the softest whisper, the lightest tap, and turn them into this incredibly rich, immersive experience for your ears. Now, these triggers usually fall into a few main buckets. You've got your auditory triggers, which are the sounds, right? Whispering, tapping, crinkling plastic. Then there are visual triggers, things like watching someone's slow, careful hand movements, but a really huge one is personal attention. These are often role plays, like a simulated doctor's visit or a haircut. It seems to tap into this really deep, primal part of our brain that connects gentle, focused attention with feeling safe and cared for. That's a super powerful way to get those feel-good chemicals flowing. Okay, this all sounds incredibly relaxing for sure, but what is actually happening inside our brains and our bodies when we experience ASMR? Let's dive into the science behind the calm. The process is surprisingly direct, actually. So, when someone who can experience ASMR engages with a trigger, let's say they're watching a video of somebody gently tapping on a wooden box, their body just responds. Research has shown their heart rate can literally slow down, and their brain gets a signal to release this amazing cocktail of happy hormones. And here are the chemicals in that cocktail. The brain releases things like dopamine, which is tied to pleasure and reward, oxytocin, which you might know as the bonding hormone, and endorphins, which are basically the body's natural mood boosters. This neurochemical release is the reason ASMR creates such a deep sense of well-being for so many people. So with all these incredible benefits, you might be thinking ASMR is this universal key to relaxation. But, well, it's not quite that simple. Turns out the experience can be very, very different from one person to the next. And this quote really hits the nail on the head. The exact same sounds that send one person into a state of bliss can be intensely irritating for someone else. This strong negative reaction to certain sounds is sometimes linked to a condition called misophonia. And the difference is just night and day. Think about it. The very same sound, like a soft whisper, can trigger a calm, tingling, relaxing sensation for someone who experiences ASMR. But for a person with misophonia, that same whisper can feel grating, annoying, and even cause real stress. It's just a fascinating reminder of how differently our brains can be wired. So, knowing that it definitely doesn't work for everyone, why in the world have these videos become so unbelievably popular? Let's look at the final piece of this puzzle, the practical reasons people keep coming back. It really all comes down to self-care, doesn't it? People are using ASMR as a tool. The most common reasons are to help them fall asleep when they're dealing with insomnia, or to quiet down an anxious mind, or just to unwind after a really stressful day. Some people even use the kinds of ASMR without talking as background noise to help them focus while they're studying or working. It's a very modern solution to some very modern problems. And that brings us to our final thought. The world of ASMR is just so incredibly vast, right?
There are endless triggers and styles out there. So, whether you're already a fan or you're just a little curious now, it leaves us with a really interesting question to think about. What kinds of sounds bring you a sense of calm?